My name is Daniela Collins. I'm a senior lecturer at Middlesex University. I work in the mental health and social work department. I'm delighted to be here today to guide you through the self-leadership session. I have worked before with social work students and social work practitioners. I ran a course on leadership for social work as part of the MA, so I'm quite familiar with the needs and the development of social work practitioners and people working in social care. So I'm inviting you to join me for this session this morning. The main purpose of the webinar is to enable you to gain an awareness of self-leadership and how to cultivate self-leadership aligned to your own values and the values of the social work profession. We will consider self-leadership is important in your personal and professional development as a social worker, and what will help you shape your leadership roles in the future and now. And self-leadership has been shown to have positive impact on career success and job satisfaction. So I would like to now move you on to the aims of the webinar, which is to define the concept of self-leadership and also look at adaptive self-leadership, which is the next level up, and gain an understanding of leadership theories and styles. And it's not a teaching session. We have activities for you to think about and reflect. So I'm not going to be just delivering content as a teaching session. I'll get you involved to think and how you can benefit from this webinar. And also please ask questions in the questions section. You're welcome to send questions if you have questions. The next aim is to be able to distinguish between self-leadership and management and self-management. We have leadership and management overlapping sometimes, and what actually constitutes an effective self-leadership when you have to combine a role of managing yourself, but also leading yourself. And also we hope to develop an awareness of your own strengths in terms of your leadership and leadership development needs, how you can actually work forward or work towards becoming a potential and more competent, accomplished leader in social work. Before we look at self-leadership, let's go to the next slide and see what leadership is. And there are numerous definitions of leadership. Various scholars and researchers have published what leadership is, what it is not. I have selected 2 quotes for this morning because of the way they portray what leadership is. And I think it drums down the message of the type of leader that is desired in today's workforce. So the first quote is from John Maxwell, who is an exceptional leadership coach in the United States and has been in the coaching business of leadership for the last 40 or 50 years now. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. It's very simple but quite inspiring quote of understanding what a leader is. Sheryl Sandberg, she's a COO of Facebook and a very famous and accomplished leader. And her definition of leadership is also inspiring. She says that leadership is about making others feel better as a result of your presence and making sure that that impact lasts when you're not there, in your absence. And I think leadership needs to inspire. Good quality leaders inspire others, they make them feel better and support them in developing themselves. And I think those 2 definitions summarize the ethos of the leader of today, what kind of leadership we're looking for, and also collaborative and supportive. So the next slide is very brief about what is management and what is leadership. And I'm sure you're already aware of the distinction between the 2. And I have a quote here which says management is doing things right while leadership is doing the right things. And I invite you to think about this definition. Management is doing things right while leadership is doing the right things. What is the difference? So leadership, the process of leadership involves establishing a direction, aligning people, motivating them, and inspiring them. And I'm sure you can think of various leaders in the public domain, politicians and activists that have inspired you, or what an inspiring leader one might be. But think of yourself. What kind of leader would you like to be? Would you like to also inspire others? And regardless of whether you're in a leadership role in your organization, for example, if you're in a formal leadership role or you're not in a formal leadership role, you are a leader. We lead at every level in terms of a hierarchical system. So what kind of leader would you like to be, and how you can develop? So that's really a key question to think about. While management, the process of management involves planning, budgeting, organizing, problem solving. And these two can overlap. And we can at times be in a management role or in a self-management role. And at times we can be more towards a leadership role. It's really important to recognize the importance of establishing a positive culture and how the quality of experiences for those working in public and community services, which is yourselves, inevitably is connected, and how effectively change is managed. And having combination of those two, leading and managing, is quite key in achieving that. So my question is, what type of person makes a good leader? How do we know what good leadership looks like, feels like, or it should look like? So leadership is at the top. What drives leadership is understanding the leadership models. So I have a couple of examples here, but this is not an extensive list of leadership models. We have the trait-based models. Those models are talking about being born a leader from early childhood onwards. These traits are shown in the personality, the type of the personality the person has. Functional models, situational models of leadership, integrated psychological, functional models. And we have about 18 leadership models that I know of. You may have heard of contingency models, situational leadership, action-centered leadership. All of those theories are informing us about what leadership is, how it can be developed, and can it be taught and developed. And that's where we're interested in. We're interested in the ability to develop and train, coach leaders of the future. Leadership philosophies are talking about or focusing on the type of leadership. There are servant leaderships, authentic, value-based, ethical leadership. This is also very important to understand because, for example, if you want to be a servant leader, that's what's required in today's practice, is serving others. How do we do that? What kind of leadership style is that when you're enabling others to lead and you're a servant leader? You also have to be authentic. What does that mean? That you're connected to your values and you know who you are, and your purpose is very clear in terms of your leadership role. You also are underpinned by ethical leadership, working in an ethical framework, and value-based, not only understanding our own values, but also the values of the profession, the values of the organization, and the values of society we live in, and having to be aware of all those when we're working as leaders or we're in a leadership role, working towards a leadership role, how we can combine ourselves, bring ourselves into the role of leadership. Leadership styles, it's not an extensive list, but I have just added few for illustration. You have heard of autocratic leadership. The focus is on the power, and the manager is very much self-directing. All the power is with the manager or with the leader. And communication is from the top down approach. Everything is delegated or communicated from the top down. There is minimal consultation with an autocratic leadership. So you can already imagine that this type of leadership is relevant in certain situations. For example, people say, I don't want to be an autocratic leader. I don't like working with people who are autocratic in their leadership style. But think about emergencies. There are situations in life or in a working life where an autocratic leader would be an excellent or a choice to step in, or yourself. You yourself could be using some of these leadership styles in a given situation. In an emergency, you might have to delegate and give orders and mobilize people to be able to act in an emergency. If an autocratic style is very much appropriate in this situation. A democratic leadership style focuses, the power is more within the group. We're working collaboratively and sharing decisions together. Laissez-faire, it's an interesting leadership style because it means leave alone. The person is totally laid back and lets the group lead. It's only effective if you have a team or clients you're working with who are very motivated and they are self-managing and self-taking initiatives. This leadership approach is appropriate. But my recommendation here is to use approaches from all those leadership styles in a given situation, because you need to be able to enable others to step up and lead and develop as well, but not to the point when the person is taking their hands off completely and they're not involved in any of the process. Transformational leadership is what is desired in the workplace, and transformational leadership inspires people to achieve remarkable results. It gives workers autonomy over specific jobs, and it does deliver excellent results. Transactional leadership promotes compliance, gives rewards and punishments. Think of the carrot and the stick method. That might work in some situations, and you can even probably see it in some interventions as well. The transformational leadership style, because it's the most effective approach in motivating people, and it builds stronger, more successful teams. And that's really key in today's practice. I wanted to also point out about core leadership skills and adaptive leadership skills. You may have come across some of this writing in the literature or in the research. It's important to understand that core leadership skills are the foundation, they're the bare bones, the core of a foundation for effective leadership. And we have here things like vision. For example, in the strategy section, we have vision, acumen, planning, and being courageous to lead. And in your role, regardless whether you're in a leadership role in terms of your organizational position, you are a leader. So you would have those core leadership skills, definitely, if you think about it and review your performance up to date. In terms of action, decision making, the person is able to make decisions, they're communicating and mobilizing others to some extent. And the results they get is ability to risk take where appropriate. The focus is on the results, and agility, being flexible. Adaptive leadership are the next level of leadership skills, building on the core leadership skills. And these are leadership skills that you would see in agile leaders who are incredibly effective in any environment. And that's something to aspire to for all of us. And things that we need to be aware of in the adaptive leadership are emotional intelligence, organizational justice, character, and development. Under emotional intelligence, the key components of being emotionally intelligent, which means you're able to manage your own emotions and the emotions of others. It enables us to work more effectively with others, particularly in the workplace. So self-awareness is key, self-management, social awareness of how we come across in a social situation in terms of our relationship management as well. It's key. Being able to read other people's emotions and being able to understand your emotions and the impact on others around us is key. Organizational justice, decision fairness, information sharing, outcomes, concerns. It's also an ability of an adaptive leader, that they just do it naturally in terms of being able to function at this level. And the character of the leader, integrity is at the core. They have credibility and development. They're lifelong learners. They're open to feedback. They're open to developing themselves and are always seeking opportunities to learn and develop. In coaching, we say that you're always in the stretch zone. You're out of your comfort zone. We only learn when we're out of our comfort zone. So with the right support and development, we could learn and develop into and aspire to be adaptive leaders. So let's look at emotional intelligence. The next slide. So what makes a good leader? 5 characteristics of emotional intelligence, as I said already. And it's really key to think about your own self-leadership. How you can improve, how you can become more self-aware. Are you able to self-regulate? So there are a number of techniques to alleviate negative emotions, such as anger or frustrations. Self-control, managing disruptive impulses. How to become more trustworthy. Maintaining honesty and integrity. And how adaptable are we? All of this is under self-regulation. Motivation. We need to motivate ourselves to achieving our goals, or in terms of our career progression, to develop and learn. So we need to have a positive attitude towards learning, being motivated, being engaging, and being engaged in the work. Being aware of what stops us from becoming committed. How do we achieve drive, and do we have that achievement drive? And striving to develop our standards of excellence, knowledge and skills. Empathy, it goes without saying. There's a very good short video clip on what empathy is and the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is service-oriented, and in order to be able to be empathic with others, we need to be able to connect in our own experiences we've had in the past, or our own feelings of fear or frustrations when we're talking to clients, or when we're talking to fellow colleagues, or when we're working with colleagues in a group. It's very, very important to be able to come through as an empathic person. And what makes you more empathic is the ability to listen. Also being aware of other cultural diversity issues and how we might be misunderstood in how we connect with others. Empathy fuels connection, while sympathy drives disconnection. So we want to be connected when we're working with others. That connection is important. In a professional sense, you're present. You're present when you're talking to people, you're present when you're working with others, and this is a key skill to develop if it's something you're struggling with. Social skills and relationship management is all about, again, how we collaborate with others, how we work with others, how we maintain our relationships, how we communicate, are we sending clear messages, are we inspiring others in terms of the way we talk, the way we communicate? Are we creating group synergy when we're working with groups? Do we have team capabilities? How do we collaborate with others? So I hope that explains it. We have a question or a comment from Sally. She says, self-management can be very difficult. I'm constantly told that while I choose the right words and tone, that my facial expressions display something contradictory. I can definitely empathize with this response, because also facial expressions can sometimes be misunderstood, or we're not aware of maybe of our facial expressions and body language. I like to move my hands a lot, so I'm aware that's not always appropriate, and it can be misunderstood in a communication setting as aggressive, perhaps. But it's also cultural factors play here in terms of how we are perceived. So with Sally's point is how we are perceived by others. We need to be aware of that. And if we are told to consider aspects of our behavior or how we come across, then the next stage would be to work on it, to reflect on it, to get more feedback. In what way should I be seen by others? How do I want to be seen by others? Because that's not how you are internally. You're not concerned or you're not disengaged, but that might be the message that other people are seeing. We'll move on to the next slide, which is, what does self-leadership mean to you? I would like to invite you to think about this question throughout the session. He that would govern others first should be master of himself. It's really a profound statement and a quote, and it's from the 16th century. So it's quite a long way off in history, but it's still very much relevant today. So how can we lead others if we cannot lead ourselves? And what does self-leadership means to us? So self-leadership can look different for all of us. It doesn't have to fit one exact definition. What being the leader of your life looks like might be completely different for me in terms of what it looks like for me. But what is key is to understand that a self-leader is someone who takes full ownership of their life and choices, acknowledges fear without letting it hold them back, deeply knows their core values and what they bring to the table, chooses to learn from their mistakes. This is really key. Uses their own intuition instead of always following others, which I can remember doing that myself at some point in my career. Knows the importance of caring for themselves, self-care. This is something we're neglecting a lot. And live lives on their own term and moves towards their dreams and their aspirations and their purpose. So this is really key for us to think about. What does self-leadership mean to you? What does self-leadership mean to me? And am I a self-leader? Can I be a self-leader? Can I develop into a self-leader? And if we reflect and think back, and I have some exercises for you to take away post-session that will help you do that, that will help you get to know yourself better as a leader. So I have a few definitions of self-leadership. So I've got a picture here of a person looking themselves in the mirror. So great leadership starts with the person in the mirror. This is a good sentence to remember on a daily basis. To lead others, we need to first be able to lead ourselves effectively. And like I said before, if you don't have a leadership title within your organization, you're still a self-leader. So what is self-leadership? Self-leadership is the process by which you influence yourself to achieve your goals and your aspirations, what you want to do with your life and with your career as well. So, like we said earlier with Sally's point, it is important to understand how others experience you in your leadership style. So becoming aware of your own inner needs or your own strengths and areas for development and how to make adjustments is really key. And I'm hoping that this session is going to help you do that, get some tools on how to become more self-aware and what you can do about developing yourself into a leadership role. I'm not going to go through everything here. I just want to make sure that there are 4 key areas of self-leadership that you can work on to improve your leadership style. So knowing who you are, it's quite easy to understand this. So what you believe in, what are your core values? Your values fit in this area. What you stand for, what you believe in. And it's important for others to know what you stand for as well. What are your goals? Goals are measurable targets we set for ourselves. And if you're setting goals, I want to be an excellent leader, Well, that's something that's very vague and not quite pinned down. Well, how are you going to achieve that? Because that's not a goal. I want to be I want to be an inspirational leader. I want to be the best I can be. It's a great aspiration, but in terms of goals, it needs to be more specific. So that is the long-term vision. It's not a goal. It's what you want to be. To set a goal is something you need to be able to work on in the next 3 to 4 to weeks or even 2 months. Something much closer. So what do you need to do today to be that person, an effective leader you want to be, or a job, an aspiration you have about your career? What do you need to do today in the next 2 weeks to get closer to that? So you need measurable goals. You need to be able to measure them. You need to be able to set a date and a time. And in the next 2 weeks, I will find a mentor or something like that. By Wednesday, I will be contacting colleagues and asking for someone to supervise me or something like that. Something more tangible, something more realistic that you can evaluate in 2 weeks' time. You can then evaluate that goal. If you find yourself a mentor or a coach, they will be able to help you work towards your goals. But you can also hold yourself accountable or be in a peer development group with other colleagues or other friends and work on your development. But it's very, very important to know what you want, where you want to be, and who you are, what drives you, what are your core values. Knowing what you do, the behaviors. This is very difficult to understand because we're not looking at ourselves all the time. We live and we're just most of the time on autopilot. We're just working, functioning, studying, learning. But it's very important to take a pause, so schedule some reflection time in your busy schedule. Schedule that, put it in your schedule. And reflect back, seek feedback, and try to understand your behaviors, particularly what works well for me, the results I've gotten this week in terms of leading on this project or working or studying in this area, any kind of activities you've been involved in with your family or with your work area. Think about it and reflect back what worked, what would I do differently? Or maybe if I had all these opportunities again, how would I go about it? And that will help you understand what works. Identify learning points. What would you like to learn? How would you like to develop? And if you have a vision of where you want to be, how you want to be in terms of your career or your life, then identifying opportunities to have a developmental, either go on a course, get a coach. I know the organizations have internal coaching opportunities for staff, finding out what's available, join a network, join a professional group that's focused on development and sharing of good practice and learning, and set a learning development plan for yourself for the next 3 months, for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months. And if you have a longer term plan, say in the next 1 or 2 years, focus on what you can do in the next 2 months, what I can do in the next 2 weeks to get closer to that. So it's smaller steps get you closer to what you want to achieve. Also building successful habits to support these pillars, creating an environment for success, knowing what you know, using what you know. You have a lot of resources. Perhaps you haven't had time to sit down and look at your support network and your what's available to you. And it might be a good thing to do is sit down and see who are your stakeholders, who is supporting you, who is a potential blocker in terms of your career. Not intentionally being a potential blocker, but some kind of obstacle is preventing you from making a breakthrough in your career or in your life. How you can go about that, what you can do, how you can increase your stakeholders, people who inspire you, people who are offering you opportunities, people who are supporting you. You'd like to surround yourself with people who are encouraging you and believing in you. So you could do a stakeholder analysis of your network. and see what you need to do in terms of career or your personal life to get there. And it's a lot of self-work, but it's quite enjoyable as well, because we tend to forget our successes. We always think, wow, I haven't done anything, I haven't achieved anything. The mind goes in a default position of negative thinking. But it's very important to remind ourselves of our successes. If you had a really difficult day at work or at home, think about 2 things that you enjoyed that day before you kind of close the chapter on the working day or on the day. Think of 2 things that were really enjoyable or successful that you did. And you will see that you will remind yourself, oh yes, I did those 2 things. It's important to end, to remind ourselves of what we've done and what we've enjoyed. It's not because our mind goes to the negative, it's a default setting. So how do we align our values so we can lead authentically? I've got some suggestions here and a definition of what values are. Values are stable constructs from which beliefs systems are generated and are central to our motivation, our behavior, our relationship with others, and our happiness as well. Most of the values we have are unconscious. We're not aware of them. They have been there since early childhood, and typically we've never reevaluated our own values to actually do an analysis or elicit our values. What are my values currently? Have they changed? They're not always congruent with our current environment. So this is why it's key to do a value elicitation exercise by yourselves. And I have a tool that will help you do that. So to effectively lead yourself, you need to be clear on who you are and what your core values are. This is the starting point. And I have a little quote here at the end. The rule of thumb is values can be expressed in 1 or 3 words. Beliefs need a full sentence, and attitudes need a whole paragraph. So it's not going to be difficult to do this. So values connect you to your authentic self, to who you are and what you believe in, what you stand for, and reveal who you are and what you stand for. If you were to identify your top 3 or top 5 core values, what would they be? After the session, I invite you to take this activity on this website. I had to find copyright-free materials because we are not at the university portal where we have copyright allowance for most of the reading materials and tools we use. You have to be registered with the university to access them. And I think also with some of the websites and the organization here. So I just found tools that were useful and available in the public domain that are reasonably useful for this exercise. It's not like someone's opinion. Mind Tools is a solid website, so we can rely on some of these activities. You might have to register, but you don't have to pay for conducting this assessment. It guides you step by step on how you can get to know what your values are. There is also a list of values that you can select from, and it will guide you through your self-direction, self-reflection about what your core values are. It's really important to do this because self-leadership begins from a place of connectedness with our authentic self. So we need to be able to do this. The next slide is self-awareness. I've chosen self-awareness because this is the hardest one to achieve. It's not also a pleasant activity, having to look at ourselves or talk about ourselves, and it's not in the culture or to promote ourselves or think about what we're good at. We're waiting for others to recognize what we're good at. But self-awareness can definitely help us. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is defined as knowing oneself. And in order for us to develop self-awareness or to become, in order to develop self-awareness leaders who are self-aware, we must be willing, or they must be willing, to examine their own values, their principles and assumptions, while also learning from their own experiences. We also learn leadership skills from the experiences in our personal lives and in our professional lives. So knowing how we interact with others and knowing who you are and the impact we have on others is really key. And self-awareness will also help us understand our leadership style. And you remember in slide 3 or 4 when I was talking about autocratic leadership or transformational leadership, contingency type of style, or autocratic leadership. What kind of leadership style we feel more comfortable in being? Do we like to delegate and tell other people what to do? Or do we enable others to also come and work with us? Do we like a collaborative approach that we work in a group with others? So it's really important to review, to become more self-aware. And I have a tool. I don't know if you, the next slide, please. I don't know if you've heard of the Johari's window. It's got 4 quadrants, and there is an area that is known to others and known to self. So it's the first upper left outer quadrant called the arena. That's the public arena. Everybody knows aspects of me. I also know those aspects of myself. So known to myself and others. In the arena section, this area drives clarity and builds trust. So it's important to think about if you were to do this Johari's window and you do the 4 quadrants, you'd like to analyze your own self. So write about stuff that people know about you and you know about yourself. A public area. There is also an area unknown to others but known to self, called the mask. So things that we don't want to share about ourselves, and the things that we only know about ourselves. They're just for us. What we share or what we hide comes under the mask area. If you move over to the blind spots, this is the one that I'm really keen on highlighting as very important, is we need people to give us feedback so we can become aware of our blind spots in terms of our development, in terms of who we are, how we work, how we are in daily life. So not valuing our strengths could also be a blind spot. But feedback is key. So what I would invite you to do is to find a way of getting feedback. So if you're going to invite people to give you feedback, an honest feedback, you need to be able to receive that. You need to be able to be prepared to hear the feedback. So instead of getting into a discussion with people about the feedback they're giving you, the best approach is to just thank them, because you want to encourage an honest feedback from people. People are not feeling comfortable sometimes to give feedback. So it's very important to be aware of the approach you're going to take. You can also use tools to become more aware about your blind spots. So most CEOs and chief executives of majority of organizations in the UK, and also in the private sector, all the successful leaders, they all have a coach. Why would they need one when they're so successful, you'd ask? Well, because this person gives them their blind spots. They get feedback which is not biased. It's an honest feedback. This is not an effective way in your career or in your approach. You need to think about this. Or you get focused. So feedback is really key to our development. And we need to be able to invite people to give us this feedback. There is also an area called the unconscious. It's not known to us or not known to anyone. So in psychoanalysis, and I have trained, and I worked as an honorary psychotherapist when I was a student, 20 years ago. With the unconscious mind, we're acting and doing things that we're not aware of why we're doing them. And we're not going to be able to analyze ourselves because we're not aware of why and how. But in terms of the blind spot areas, there is something we can actually do about, unless you see a psychoanalyst who would then be analyzing our behaviors and situations we find ourselves in. They might be able to give us feedback, but that's not achievable for most of us. We don't really need that. What we need is feedback and awareness of our blind spots and how we can develop and how we can stop behaviors that are blocking our progress and like we are misunderstood in some way. The intention is always good, but the understanding from others, how we come across when we work with others on a project or even with our clients and service users, with our families as well, we might not be aware of how we come across. So we can actually do something about the blind spots. I have a suggestion on the next slide on how you can do this. So consider your leadership styles you believe will best facilitate your goals. So you need to be aware of where you want to be and how you want to develop in the next year or in the next 6 months or 2 years. And through self-awareness and using the Johari's window, you'll be able to understand what kind of leadership style you need to develop in order to become a better leader, but also get closer to the goals you're trying to achieve. So effective leaders can adapt their style to the needs of their followers. Followers are people who are following you, and you don't actually encourage people to follow. Leaders don't encourage people, follow me, everybody, follow me. I'm going to be the most amazing leader or whatever. Even that doesn't work. Followers choose to follow you. And that's really a compliment if you have followers. But so effective leaders can adapt their style to the needs of followers and to the nature of the situation they're in. I have a very brief example of Churchill. He was a very disagreeable man before he became a prime minister. He couldn't get along with anybody. So the saying is, because I was not around to witness that. But when he became a prime minister, he was an excellent leader with a focused and a clear vision. And he was able to get the country united, and everybody was going to fight the Germans. Freedom, and everybody was focused and they believed in him and he was inspirational. But at different times when he was not in this role or in that situation when he was needed as a prime minister, at different times he was very unsuccessful and very disagreeable and not popular. People did not like being around him. So that's an interesting example of how things could not work out well. So I have another questionnaire or another tool for you on Mind Tools that will help you discover your leadership style, and you can learn about your strengths and areas for development. So if you complete this tool after the session, when you have time, when you've scheduled some time for your reflection, it will help you understand your leadership style, whether you're more a collaborative leader, or you like to participate, you like to collaborate with others, work in a group, or maybe you're more predominant in the autocratic, you like to delegate and kind of tell people what to do. You don't like discussions, you don't invite collaborations. I doubt that's the case, but there are very few people who fall into that category. And how we need to be able to, in order to get where you want to be, what kind of leadership styles you believe you need to develop to get there. So this exercise will help you become a little bit more aware of how you can do that and what your core leadership style is. But as I said earlier, you don't default only on one leadership style. We, in certain situations, we step up and adopt different leadership styles to fit the situation, or depending on the task we're working on. So that's really important to know, that you do have a repertoire of leadership styles that you're using in your daily job, perhaps you're not aware of. But what do you believe? What do you want to develop as more of? What do you want to be seen as in terms of leadership and leadership styles? It's really key. So you need to be able to understand your desires, your aspirations, and how, if you're focused, how you can actually develop and go towards that goal, work towards it with support from a mentor and reflective practice. Enthusiastic for learning, loves to share learning. So you're in some kind of a community of practice. If you're not a member yet of a community of practice, I would definitely invite you to join, because that's really very useful. Other people who are enthusiastic as well about learning and sharing good practice and information and knowledge and skills, you will find your own tribe in terms of professional development. And that's really motivating, that's really inspiring, and can drive you, and can also be a source of support. Goals for your life and career. As I said, goals have to be measurable, not something that's like a vision. I want to be best at something. That cannot be measured. It cannot be pinned down into a goal. We need something more specific. I would like to be a more effective communicator in a situation such as A, B, and C. That's something more tangible you can work on. So how you're communicating and monitoring your own goal progress outside of formal performance reviews. So we have formal performance reviews at work, like annual appraisals, perhaps for job promotional opportunities. We might have another review with HR if we are taking new roles or we're applying for new roles. But in terms of your own reflection and where you want to be, how are you monitoring your own goal progress outside of these formal performance reviews, and how you can do that. Think about other ways you can do this and schedule that in your personal and professional development plan. Willingness to let go. This is something I can confess I find very hard to do. So delegating to others, willingness to let go and delegating to others. Self-leaders delegate, and this allows for better leadership in areas of strength. If you're working in your areas of strength, majority of the time, you're building yourself up, you're using your skills, you're more energized, you're enjoying the work, if that makes sense. But enabling others as well to step up and lead. So it's willingness sometimes to let go, not holding on to too much work and taking way too much responsibilities on. It's the balance. Planning. Self-leaders create plans and schedules, and they stick to them. If you're not used to scheduling self-development and scheduling reflective practice, I would definitely encourage you to start doing that. Even if it's a coffee break, why not have a 10-minute reflection time? Or meet other peers and then have a group discussion, because we do this informally anyway. But it's scheduling, planning, and setting dates. If you actually write it down, it will happen. If you don't write it down, it will not happen. This is what I know from coaching. So it's very important to see it written down or in an electronic diary with an aim, and you're making small steps towards it. It motivates you. Not like massive leap jumps, marathon style, but small steps getting you to where you want to be. It's very, very encouraging. It motivates you to keep going, to be more engaged in achieving your goals. Focus on self-discipline. This is really interesting because everybody thinks that being busy is really great. Multitasking is fabulous. I don't know where that came from, but research definitely shows that multitasking does not work. What works is focusing on one task at a time and doing the best work and creating better results that way. One task at a time. If it's done well, it's more likely to be completed. And self-discipline as well. Self-leadership skills involve leaders' ability to reflect on their self-strengths and weaknesses. And we've mentioned that earlier in the Johari's window as a tool for self-reflection. There are various models to structure your reflection. If you have like a learning incident that happened, and you can describe what happened, what would you do differently next time? If you were in the same situation, what have you learned? What you need to do next, type of structure. So the next slide, good self-leadership. Just to summarize what we've been saying so far, and also to highlight what's important is recognizing and articulating your own values and principles, like we've said before. Understanding how these may differ from other individuals and groups, and do that in an inclusive way, because we're working with inclusivity and diversity. Articulating our own values and principles, and how these may differ from other people we work with or live with, if it's a home situation. Identify your own strengths and limitations, and the impact of our behaviors on others in relation to our strengths and weaknesses. How we deal with stress and the effect of stress on our own behavior, recognizing and valuing diversity. Because different people, if we're working in a group or we're in a family situation, different people will act differently under stress, or in terms of how we relate to them if we're under pressure. To minimize those limitations, to tame them. If it's behaviors, we can change behaviors, we can adapt our behavior, so we're not misunderstood. Identify your own emotions and prejudices, and this can come through self-reflection and through feedback, and how we need to adjust sometimes our behavior, and our judgments can be impaired if we are falling into a prejudice trap, or we're not even aware that we're doing it, because we're a member of society, and society does have prejudices, stigma, and some discriminatory opinions and views that exist in society. We are members of society, we're members of families. We might be carrying some of these prejudices without obviously being aware of them. So having gain an awareness of them, it's very important through reflection and through feedback from others. We're motivated enough to seek opportunities and challenges for personal development. And when we do ask for feedback and we receive it, just a polite reminder, all we're going to say is thank you, not get into a debate, or because that puts people under pressure, not to want to give honest feedback. So actively seeking opportunities and challenges for your own personal development, but also acting on the feedback you receive from a variety of sources, and adapting our behavior based on that feedback and based on our reflections to move us forward. I have a post-activity session for you on the next slide. So self-assessment and reflection. What I would invite you to consider doing is think for the next 6 months from today, start observing your own leadership behavior and keep a reflective journal. It doesn't have to be very detailed, because I know people are very busy. You don't have time to write. It can be an audio journal. I've started doing audio notes, really, really useful. Everybody's got a mobile phone these days. You can capture your reflection in an audio diary. You don't even have to write, you just speak, and you can go back and listen to that and think, wow, looking back 6 months later, this is not how the situation, you're just surprised at yourself. And it's really interesting. But anyway, for the next 6 months, observe your own leadership behavior and keep a reflective journal. Ask yourself in each situation, if I could do that again, how I would do it. Evaluate your effectiveness in terms of your own view of how you were effective in the situation. Reflect on your reaction, but also the reaction of others towards your leadership style. Reflect on the results you obtained, or what kind of results you would have liked to obtain. Another way of getting to understand ourselves as a leader is to ask for feedback from other people. There is 360-degree feedback that's used in majority of companies. You can find out if your organization is using 360 feedback. If that's available, that might be a good way of doing that. You will select a number of colleagues at random who know you, who have worked with you, and they will fill in this online 360 feedback about you, about how you come across as a leader and how you work with others, and areas that you need to become aware of that are not working as perceived by your colleagues. Another way to do it is, if this is not available, is to choose key stakeholders I call them blind spot buddies. They're really helping us identify our blind spots, that you can meet regularly and receive honest feedback. But like I said, when they do give the feedback, all we have to say is thank you. So we can encourage them to give us more feedback in the future in an honest way. If we get into a debate, trying to debate the feedback they're giving us, then people will become a little bit more defensive and they won't want to be honest with us. Because everyone wants to be liked. We have to understand that's a core need of people. They don't want to bring negative feedback. This might only happen in a formal manager and line manager relationship, when you're getting feedback about something that performance-wise was not acceptable or not to the standards. But that's in a formal capacity. Normally, when we're approaching blind spot buddies or colleagues to give us feedback about our leadership style and how we work with others, they choose to do this because they're trying to help us. So just remember not to get into a debate, because that would be counterproductive. Next slide is 5 tips investing in yourself to become a better leader. Like I've said earlier, self-care is never scheduled for people working in health and social care, but it's actually a key component, strategy, focus that we should have on maintaining our own health and wellness. So this needs to be built consciously into everything you do throughout the day. Think about what you can do for yourself in one day to look after yourself, even if it's taking a break. Some people don't even take a break. Go for a short walk. Something that, I don't know, read a book or listen to your favorite songs for 10 minutes in your break during your working day. Self-awareness, as we mentioned before, knowing who we are, how we show up, what are our strengths and weaknesses, and it's the core of our authenticity. The authenticity leads to trust, and that's really important for us to be aware of. Self-improvement, to be on the lookout for ways to evolve, either in your role or in your personal life. Be open to opportunities. Most of the times I can remember in my career, I've been asked to do things like, oh, I don't think I can do that. No, I don't think it's not possible. I don't know where these self-limiting beliefs come from, like you can't do this. But every time I've taken the challenge, it's been the best experience ever. It's led to more opportunities, more collaborations, myself gaining more confidence in my abilities. And we have to allow for us sometimes to fail as well, because failure is not a failure, it's a learning opportunity. So it's how we see those experiences in our lives that's really key. Self-management, think about how you manage your thoughts and feelings, both at work and at home. You can do this by journaling to be more in touch with your emotions. Like I said, if you don't have time to type, do audio notes that are only confidential to you for your own reflection, to look back later. And self-reflection, the most successful leaders build self-reflection into their lives. It becomes like a common practice for them to think about, well, I've scheduled self-reflection, so I'm going to think about my most successful week and my areas that didn't go so well. They do that straight away. So, personal development plan. Old you, new you. Yes, how can I evolve into the me that I want to be, or I want to be seen as, or I want to operate and live my life by, both professionally and at home. So personal development plans. I don't know if you've considered one for yourself. My personal development plan. It can be a plan about your personal life, something you're aspiring in your personal life to achieve or work on, or it could be in your that also impacts on your career and your ability to be more effective in your career. So personal leadership development plan are just some tips to consider. Of course, you can tailor your own personal development leadership plan that works for you. There are several templates to use. You can even create a template on a Word document. But here are some things to consider. use the SMART approach. Like I've said earlier, if you're going to set targets and goals, make sure something you can actually measure, you can see whether it's working or not working, or you have an overall goal for the next year or 2 years in your career or personal life. But you need to be able to know what you're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks and 4 weeks and 6 weeks to get small steps to get there. And that's what's going to keep you motivated. So your personal leadership development plan could possibly have sections about what makes a great leader, your view, your opinion about what makes a great leader. You might have a role model at work. Define what makes a good leader for you. So make a list of skills of what makes a good leader in your opinion, or have a picture of your role models, perhaps if they're in the public domain, if they're public figures. Make a list of the skills that you see this person has that you admire. And then make a list of skills that you want to become better at. You want to master those skills. It just gives you an idea. And once you write it down, it becomes much more real in terms of you wanting to work towards developing skills. So what are those skills that you want to master? And then how you can practice them. What do you need? What resources do you need to be able to practice those skills to become better leader? In your view, this is what you see as an inspirational leader and something you aspire to become, and you have a clear idea what the skills are. Identify your core values, and on slide 12, I gave you a tool that you can do to help you elicit your core values, the 3 to 5 core values that drive you, that makes you understand your motivation, because your motivation comes from those values. So that's really key. Schedule an exercise to do that. Identify a personal vision statement. I don't know if you've ever heard of vision boards, and these are like pieces of paper like this, and you just put either pictures or what you find from papers, where you want to be like next year, or where you want to be in 2 years' time, a vision for your life, a vision for your career, and you have that on your fridge, perhaps, door, or somewhere like that. What do you want to achieve? Where you want to be? And that's quite a powerful exercise as well. So the step 4 would be to seek feedback from friends, colleagues, and family. If you don't have the 360 opportunity at work, but you can also approach colleagues who might be willing to help, give you feedback. Write down the words that they use to describe you. So this could be an exercise in itself. Just how would you describe me? And then write those words or capture them in an audio if you don't have time to write, with the person's permission to record them, of course, because of the laws in terms of recording people, audio recording, I mean. But you can capture those keywords that the people use to describe you. Oh, you're always approachable. But you might not see yourself as approachable. I'm approachable, really? I didn't know that. So it's something you can work on. If I'm not, you're not always approachable in a situation like this. So it's something to give you a feedback and an awareness about how you can become better leader and be perceived and received better by others. Step number 5 would be good to identify your critical indicators to success. If you want a promotion in the next year, what would be the critical successes? What do you need to do, or what do you need to be able to know you should have done in order to get there? How would you know that you're succeeding, you're getting closer to your goal? So I call them critical indicators for success, but they're your understanding of where you need to be, maybe based on feedback as well, or based on an appraisal, perhaps, if it's more work related. What are those, and how do you know you're getting closer to where you want to be? Find a mentor that is willing to work with you if you already don't have one. And again, encourage feedback, and you'll have more structured support. If you cannot find a mentor, I would advise you to work with a coach. the mentorship and coaching is different in terms of a mentor would be sharing what worked for them. In this situation, this type of approach worked for me. If you want, you can do the same and see if it works for you. So mentoring is sharing experiences, and it is an invaluable function to help us. It's an invaluable role that we can tap into for our professional development. However, a coach is going to keep you accountable and is also going to help you set goals and work towards it. So it's a lot more focused on the future and where you want to be, while a mentorship or a mentor shares tips and from their own experience, and that if you choose to do the same, it might work for you. I also mentioned being in a community of practice and being in a network of professionals. If you're already not in such network for your own career development, then is something to consider joining. Write an action plan with measurable and time-bound goals, something you can actually assess in the next 2 weeks, and write them in your diary, schedule them. I need to review my progress. I wanted to achieve this for the last 2 weeks. What prevented me from doing anything? What prevented me from taking action? If you're not taking action on something you want to do, then it's not of a priority. You're not motivated enough to do it because it's not important to you in your life right now. For example, some people join a gym and they never show up. They're paying gym membership for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So being fit is not a priority in their life if they're not taking action to go to the gym. They've registered, they're paying membership, but they're not attending. So that's just a simple example of, if you're not taking action towards something, then it's not a priority right now. You can go back to it in the future. You need to find out what is it that you can take action on right now to get closer to where you want to be. And if you're not taking action on something, you're not taking an initiative to get closer to achieving that, then a reflection exercise will help you understand what is preventing you from making a change in your life. And again, reflect, evaluate, and seek developmental opportunities. Be enthusiastic and be open about it. Opportunities coming your way, working with others, learning, and taking positive risks. We have the Leadership Quality Framework from 2014. Leadership is grounded in your everyday practice and behaviors. Your practice is underpinned by personalization and co-production. So personalization is when you work with your client is at the center of your activities and of your interventions and your collaborative working relationship. But also co-production. What does co-production mean? Working collaboratively, either with colleagues or with service users, about not only designing services, not only designing and planning and evaluating, perhaps teaching as well, a type of activities, but being at the core throughout the whole process, being active participants, being active members, and equal collaboration from both. So it's a different approach. It's not involvement, it's co-production. We're co-producing everything together. And you need different type of leadership skills to be able to deliver this type of vision for your role. Also, describes in a clear and accessible way what good leadership looks like in different settings and situations. So if you're a frontline worker, it clarifies what your leadership role or looks like. If you're a CEO or an executive at executive level, it also describes what the leadership quality standards are for that role. But also, if you're aspiring to go up and progress in your career, you could see what is required in terms of your own development skills and capabilities to be able to get to a more senior leadership position based on the leadership quality framework. Because we know that good social care can transform people's lives. High quality leadership is fundamental to the delivery of good social care. So that's really key. If you're working towards developing your leadership role in your professional role, then this is definitely something you need to consider in your reflective practice. And if you're working with a mentor, or if you're getting feedback, you need to be looping and connecting all of these together with your goals and aspirations, if that makes sense. And then you're informed of what is expected in your professional career, in your professional role. These are the leadership standards and quality that's expected of you, how you can aspire to get there. So it also illustrates the attitudes and behaviors needed for high quality leadership at every level in the sector. So regardless of where you are, even if you don't have a leadership role officially, you are a leader, especially a self-leader. So I would definitely recommend, if you haven't looked at the leadership quality framework, to certainly incorporate this into your reflective practice. Okay, and I'm just going to summarize again. It looks at the next slide, the 6 principles of leadership practice: social purpose, co-production, innovation, improvement, integration, risk and responsibilities. And again, it covers the 4 levels of leadership: frontline worker, frontline leader, operational leader, or strategic leader. And I've given the reference at the bottom where you can go and find the leadership framework for more details. Particularly, I like the leadership starts with me document. It's really, really very detailed and can inform you and help you get a better picture of the leader you're expected to be in your workplace. So we look at the leader I want to aspire to be and my role models and abilities and skills that I need to gain to become a better self-leader. But also you've got the professional component of your leadership role as well. And it's important to be aware of both. So that's why I'm ending the presentation with the next slide about the social work professional capabilities framework. This was refreshed in 2018. And there are 3 overarching principles: purpose, practice, and impact. What I was particularly interested in the leadership pillar, professional leadership pillar, or a section of the framework that's really relevant to you. For your post-session activity, I would invite you to reflect on your core motivations, values, ethics, and how these affect your self-leadership in your social work approach and practice, because you want to be more effective in your workplace as a leader and a self-leader as well. It's very important to start with yourself. You brought your qualities, your transferable skills, and yourself to the role of a social worker or a worker who works in social care. You brought that before you trained as a professional, before you joined the organization. So it's strengthening your self-leadership skills and you being more effective and being better understood by others and working better with others is definitely something that we should work on in our personal and in our professional life. But at the end of the day, it's also you have a professional role that is expecting of you key leadership skills and behaviors. So I think it's both are relevant from the session, and I hope I have been able to convey that clearly in the last hour and a half almost. There are 9 domains that make up the professional capabilities framework, and it will help explain what social work, it does explain what social workers do. So it involves complexity and it needs to be viewed holistically. And I think you bring yourself to the role as a leader as well. So you having a better understanding of your own self-leadership skills and the impact you would have on others, and hopefully it's going to be a positive impact. It will help you also frame it if you're reviewing your role or if you're looking for a promotion. It will help you understand better where you want to be in your career, what kind of career role you'd like to have, and be more, have a better job satisfaction as well. You know what's expected of you in terms of those professional frameworks that are leading you in your professional career. But also you would want job satisfaction. You would want to feel valued. You would want to contribute to the profession. And that's what you bring. And having a new way of developing yourself, investing in your own development, and getting more engaged with who you are, what your values are, what drives you, how you can be more effective as a leader, will help you get there, or it will help you understand which speciality of the profession you have more job satisfaction, but are you also contributing better to the social work profession. If it's in developing others, if you're good at developing other social workers and colleagues, you might want to take a lead or go in that direction. Or if you're more energized and more motivated to be a manager and managing services, and I don't know, you might want to go in that direction. So this does help you find your way, because I'm aware that we're working in busy jobs, and we can lose sight of why we are here and whether we are effective. We know that there is a large number of people leaving professions and changing their careers. That's perfectly fine, but you might find that you are enjoying this work so much more, and you'd like to just tailor it and guide it through the guidance. So having mentors, having feedback, being open to receiving feedback, being enthusiastic about learning and developing, and remembering that you have strengths, you have brought something valuable to the profession, is reminding yourself of your successes on a daily basis, and staying focused on what you want, where you want to be. It's something that you can achieve. It's achievable. You just need to put the right plan for yourself in place to do that. So I hope I have inspired you to take an action on getting closer to exactly where you want to be in your life and in your career. Thank you very much for your time. All the best.